It is 6:52 and we are about to watch the Monza Grand Prix. I'm very excited. It happened at 11 p.m. last night, but instead of staying up till like 1 a.m, we decided to get up this morning, get coffees. I got an almond croissant. Awesome. Now we're gonna watch the race and I'm very excited, and I know that it's Max, Lando, Oscar, Charles, but I have faith that Oscar is gonna win. I don't know, maybe Max and Lando will like take each other out in the first corner or something. I have faith. I do have faith in Oscar. And even if he doesn't win, I have faith that he'll finish near the top and keep his lead. I'm gonna start this. I'm gonna go and watch the race and I'm gonna try and write some notes so that when I come back and I sit down with you in a little bit, I actually know what the heck I'm talking about, because I'm gonna try and make it less shambles than last time, but also I kind of really love the unhingedness of it all. You know, we're not here to be experts about F1, we're here to have a yap about F1. Without further ado, I'm gonna go watch the race, which has already happened. Haven't been on social media, don't know what happened, don't know who won. It's gonna be Oscar. It's gotta be.
Oh, it's great to go. Norris is sending it.
I kinda wish it didn't happen.
It's a bit like Hungary last year. We pitted this all for team reasons. Please let Lando pass, then you're free to race.
I mean, we said that it's so it's part of racing. So I don't really get what changed here, but if we really went to do it, then I'll do it.
You let him pass in.
Yeah.
He made his point and he did what the team wanted, but that's
It's just unfortunate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the end of it, really. He's not catching.
Norris and Piastri have swap places.
Because he had a slow stop.
That's a valid point. That's a valid point.
Between the drivers until the championship. You focus on the road ahead as well, please.
That's funny.
It's not Oscar's fault that
No.
they had a slow start.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I don't know about that one, eh? I'm not surprised, but
No.
I don't know about that one.
Was there not like a big enough gap for them to double stack anyway? They were like 4 seconds in between, like.
Probably.
So isn't it?
3 points.
It's like, I know you qualified before Oscar, but like, how far does that advantage?
Yeah, not that far.
Like, they should just race it out, I reckon.
Lando's quicker. No doubt. Oh, there's still a lap to go, you can still bottle it.
Las Vegas as well, because they're very similar aero setup there. So that looks good for Red Bull.
Yuki's 13th.
Kelly Piquet has come to Monza
Piquet.
to see how her partner
Piquet.
gets
Piquet.
on, and he's getting on very nicely. Kimi erratically.
He's ducking penalties up, eh?
Yeah. I wonder how you get asked to.
Waiting to win the Italian Grand Prix.
19 seconds.
That's huge. I'm getting PTSD. Max winning by 20 seconds.
Yeah, I know.
Doesn't look good.
I like.
Comes second, Oscar Piastri third, Charles Leclerc fourth, Sainz just pushes out ahead of
You've done the right thing. You talked about it after finish P3.
Yeah, very tough one. Yeah. Little incident at the end, but that's okay.
That's fun. So I was asking shit questions.
Yeah, like he's not asking.
No.
I have thoughts. Okay. I have notes this time. I have a lot of notes. We just finished watching Monza, okay? Watched the whole thing, and I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to think. I mean, it was fine, but like, there was a few things that I would like to discuss, obviously. Let's start with qualifying, okay? So in qualifying, I did get to watch it this time. We had Max, Lando, Oscar, Charlie. That was our order. Also, the commentators did call Charles Leclerc Charlie. So like, I feel like I can really, truly call him Charlie now. So qualifying happened, right? You know, it was just pretty standard the whole time. I was like watching, but like I wasn't too enthralled. And then, you know, it's not like Lando needing Oscar's help to get out of Q2. The only really notable thing that happened in qualifying is that Max got pole out of nowhere. You know, he just does that sometimes. I don't really know. He's just, you know, not in like a great car and he's not having like the best season, and then all of a sudden he's just like, zoom. you know, we were like watching and it was like the track's not evolving, like people aren't getting their purples, it's gonna stay how it is. And then right at the end, Lando somehow went whoom. And then Max, you know, like we're thinking, well, Lando's got pole, and then Max just, as I said, zoom, and then he got pole and he broke a record as well. So like, I mean, that classic Max, you know, out of nowhere, just like. Then the race comes around, okay? So fast forward to the race. We're watching, right? And the first corner of the last few races, I feel, or like a lot of this season hasn't been like that stressful, but this one was like stressful, right? It was like a squabble because they took off and then Lando is trying to get around Max and then Max is trying to cover off Lando. And I feel like Oscar should have gone left, but he went right. And then anyway, Max pushes Lando into the grass and then Max has to leave the racing track and go off the track to keep his position. And Charles Leclerc gets around Oscar. Oscar is now in fourth and Charlie's in third, and we're like, ah. And then Oscar does what he does best and he overtakes Charlie in a great overtake. You know, we love that because the Ferraris were slower than the McLarens, so he needed to get in front, because if he finished in fourth versus third, he would have been like a lot more points behind Lando. So, well, not behind, but like he would have had a bigger point gap, one less points than Lando in this race, but still been ahead, I think. Anyway. But then, okay, so then Oscar does get around Charlie and we're like, good, he's done it early. But then they get a call on the radio to Max that he has to give the position to Lando because he gained an advantage by leaving the track. So then he has to give that position to Lando. So then he gives the position in a quite like precarious moment, which means that there's a squabble behind him. And then because of how that happens, Charlie gets back in front of Oscar again, and it's like, oh, are you serious? And then it was about 6 laps before Oscar got back in front of Charlie. Oscar gets in front of Charlie, it's Max, no, what happened then? Max overtakes Lando, you know, so he's started the race in first, gained a position, given the position to Lando, and then overtaken Lando again. So it was like kind of masterful from Max. He did like pretty good. So now we're running the race and we're running in the same order that we've started in qualifying, even though there's been like a little bit of stuff happening in the first 10 laps. For a lot of the race, it was just big gaps between the cars. I don't really know if it's because that was, you know, best for keeping their tires good or clean air. I'm not really sure, but it was like between 4 and 6 seconds between each car pretty consistently, like the first 6 cars. Like there was big gaps, like nobody was right on the other person. The cars weren't really battling it out during the race. And so now it's like, well, what's going to happen in pit stops? Is that where the action is going to come? Like there was talk of undercuts. So we're just waiting for stuff to happen. In the meantime, Esteban Ocon got a 5-second penalty for forcing Stroll off the track, and I don't really care about Ocon because he's like my least favorite driver on the track, and then Stroll is a close second of my least favorite driver. So it was kind of funny that it was them two, and I don't know, there was a few different penalties throughout this race. For example, I think Kimi got a penalty. I couldn't tell you why. I don't really remember. Oh, and then Bearman got a penalty as well for a racing incident with Carlos. This was like further into the race. Bearman was in front and then Carlos overtook and then he's in front, so you know it's Carlos's corner, but you still need to leave enough room for the car next to you, right? Like that's like the rules. So he's going, and then originally when you first saw the incident happen, it kind of looked like Bearman crashed into Sainz, but on the replay it really looked like to us that Sainz came in too hard on Bearman and didn't give him enough track space, and then they had a collision, and it wasn't like crazy, no yellow flag or anything. I think they both continued the race, but then Bearman got a 10-second penalty, which is crazy. We thought it would be a racing incident because it was kind of like both drivers. It seemed very 50-50, but I guess the stewards didn't think it was 50-50. So, I mean, I don't know how they're deciding things, but sometimes I really don't agree with their decisions. Anyway, they said at the beginning of the race that the pit window to pit on the hards, because I think they started on mediums and then they were going to go to hards. That was the main strategy, because in F1, if it's a full dry race, you have to have 2 different compound tires. So you have to pit and you have to put on a tire that's different to the one you were running. So there's like soft, mediums, hards. So then the pit window opens at lap 20. The McLaren team asked Oscar and then they asked Lando, how do you feel about doing plan A, 1 stop, but with a 15 extra laps before you pit? And both of them were like, yeah, we kind of feel like this is fine. And Oscar said at the end of the race that his car even felt better for him after the tires had been run in a bit, you know, after they degraded a little bit. So I don't really know why or kind of like how that happens, but sometimes it's like kind of unpredictable. But yeah, so then they were going to go long. Max, Lando and Oscar are running along long race. So then even the pit window's open, nothing's really happening. So then if we talk about the other drivers, we had Gabriel Bortoleto and Fernando Alonso kind of racing each other. So Gabby was in front and Fernando was behind. And if you don't know, Fernando Alonso is Gabriel Bortoleto's manager. And so he helped him get into F1 and like he's still his manager, but they also race each other. And like because they're kind of both in midfield cars, like almost like a bit lower than midfield cars generally. They do race each other a lot, and you know, Fernando Alonso has a bazillion million years of experience and Bortoleto is a rookie, so that's also interesting. But I think it's so funny that they have to race each other sometimes, and in this race Alonso was trying to get in front of Gabby and I don't know, it just wasn't really working. So then they went to pit and it's like the mechanics at Aston Martin knew that the only way for Alonso to get in front of Gabby was to do a really great pit stop. So they went in the pits right behind each other and Alonso fed it into the pits and then braked right at the last minute so that he was really close so they would get into the pit stops like the same time. And then Gabby's pit stop was a bit slow and the Fernando's, I don't think it was like exceptionally fast, but it was a good pit stop, and then they got out first and so like they overtook in the pits, which is crazy. And then I just love how the mechanics, they'll like fist bump each other. It's such a vibe when the mechanics like, yeah, we crushed it, because I mean they do play a huge part in how the race goes and in the race, like they are part of the race and the race strategy, how good their pit stops are, how fast they are, the efficiency, the choice of the pit stops. And that played such a big part in this race, and we're gonna get to that. But anyway, so Alonso comes out in front of Gabby and it's like, yeah, but then right later in the race Alonso goes over curb pretty hard, I guess, and his suspension breaks and then he has to retire the car. So after all that he has to retire the car, and he is not having a great time this season, to be honest. I feel like he's just grumpy and nothing's going his way and he's having like bad luck. So yeah, Alonso is not having the best season with Aston Martin. Let's just leave that at that. So clearly from this we can tell, because of how this race is running, pits are playing a big part, right? So continue on the race and it's about I want to say like 20 laps until the end, like around lap 40, maybe a bit before, maybe a bit after. I didn't take too much note of the exact lap, but Max pits and he puts on hard. The McLarens decide that they're going to do the opposite to Max to try and maybe get an advantage. So they're going to stay out and then put softs on right at the end, because at the beginning of the race, I think it was Bearman. Was it Bearman? One of the other drivers, Lawson? Bro, I don't know. One of the drivers started on softs and they only lasted like 10 laps. So they don't want to put the softs on until they know it can make it to the end, because they lose so much time in pit stops here because the pit straight is so fast. So they wait and like Max has come out, but then he's come out on the hards and he's doing great. Like he's getting fastest laps, he's just flying. So Max is sitting pretty. There's no safety car, which kind of means that, well, the McLarens are not going to get in front of Max. So now it's just sort of like not a battle or anything, but the only point of contention is between Oscar and Lando. And at this point, we're gearing up to the end of the race, right? We're lap 40, 43, 44, 54 laps, I think the race in total. So, you know, they've gone like 45 laps on mediums the whole race. Pretty crazy that they lasted so long on their tires. So like, good job for them. But you know, it's getting to the pointy end and they need to pit because they can't finish the race on the tires that they're on. There's 10 laps to go. It's time to pit. And I was thinking, well, there was probably like 4-5 seconds, maybe 6. They started at a 6-second gap between Oscar and Lando, or Lando and Oscar. And then Oscar starts like eating into the gap. He starts catching Lando. And I think, like me watching the race, thinking to myself, like they should pit them because then they can race out to the end, right? Then they can, you know, get it on. That sounds sexual. They can battle it out. Give them enough time to let them have a battle, because if Oscar gets too close to Lando's still in front, so they'll still give him priority to pit. I thought they were going to double stack, but if Oscar gets too close, then the double stack doesn't work, and anyway, he'd have to drop back or stay out another lap. So I'm watching and I'm like, when are they going to pit? How is this going to play? And I was talking to Jackson and I was saying that I personally think that they kept the cars out, because if they kept them out long enough and then they pitted for softs, it would make it almost too short for them to battle it out. It would have been enough laps for Oscar to catch Lando, but it wouldn't have been enough laps for them to really battle it out. And I think that was like a safe call for McLaren, because it's like, well, then there's less chance of, you know, Lando crashing into the wall because he just is freaking out. They want to finish 2-3 if they're not going to finish 1-2. They're talking to Lando on the radio and he goes, are we going to pit Oscar first? And they're like, yes. And he goes, what about the undercut? And then the radio is like, don't worry, Oscar's not going to get an undercut. And they've worked it out on time that it's going to be close, but Oscar's not going to get an undercut, and then they can race at the end. So they pit Oscar first. He has a good pit stop. He comes out. Then they pit Lando, and I think the front left tire wasn't on properly. So he had a very long pit stop. So long that he comes out behind Oscar after he's full guaranteed on the radio, like, I don't want to come out and get undercut. And they're like, you won't. And then the mechanics fumble the pit, and then he does come out after Oscar. And then they're racing, and there's not that many laps to go. So if they have to swap positions on team orders, I want them to do it quicker so that Oscar has a chance to overtake Lando, because every lap they don't make the decision, it makes it harder for Oscar to re-overtake Lando if they ask him to give the position back, because we know that McLaren will probably ask them to. They're saying it's like Hungary when they pitted to the advantage of Lando to protect him, but it gave him a race advantage and it helped Lando undercut Oscar, even though in that situation they were doing it to protect Lando, right, in second place. And then they were like, we'll swap them back. But then Lando was like, I'm faster, I don't want to swap back. And he had like a big hissy fit. No, I don't want to give the position back. And it was this whole moment, and it was going to be Oscar's first win, and it full tainted the win. And this situation is different because Lando was in second and he made the call, and then his pit stop got screwed up, which is just part of racing. And then they did ask Oscar to swap back with Lando, and like, I understand why they did, but they probably shouldn't have. And in the radio message, Oscar says, because he's very clear, he'll do what the team asks because he knows that racing is a team sport. But that's crucial. Like, if he loses the championship by 2 points, like, that is going to be like looked back at this race. So they swap positions, and it's not long enough for Oscar to get Lando back. So they finish Max, Lando, Oscar. And on the radio, Oscar said, I will swap back, but I thought we said that pit stops were just part of racing, which is fair. And then Max is racing out in front, you know, he is like driving Miss Daisy, like he doesn't even need to focus. And his team tells Max that Lando and Oscar swapped, and he goes, what, because Lando had a slow pit stop? And they're like, yeah. And he's like laughing because it's ridiculous. Like, Max wouldn't have swapped in that situation, you know. He's like, that's not my fault that he had a slow pit stop. He made the call to pit second, and then he had a slow pit stop, which is luck of the draw. It's like if you pit with a safety car or something in the wrong timing, like, it's not like, oh, swap back. And there's all these memes, and I'm gonna put some in here. Like, it's fine. And, you know, Oscar was so funny at the end because the commentator guy didn't ask questions about it. I don't know, I wanted to hear the thoughts, but he didn't really ask questions in the post-race interview. But Oscar did say there was an inchident at the end, which was so funny. Oscar is iconic, and you can tell that, like, it didn't affect his morale, you know, having to swap, but he's also a bit like, like, British bias. Anyway, I think they should have just raced it out. That is just my thoughts on the whole situation. I think that they should have just let them race. And because Lando was faster, he might have overtaken Oscar anyway. So just don't stuff up the pit stop. I don't really know what the big deal is. I think it was funny. He's like, Oscar won't get the undercut, will he? And they're like, no. And then they proceed to fuck up his pit stop and give Oscar the undercut. So, like, it is what it is. Oscar's still in front. We love that. Max got another podium somehow. I don't know, he just pulls it out of the bag every so often. I'm not mad. I think he did a good race. And my last thought is, why is the trophy, like, what is that? Jackson said it's a phoenix or something, but to me it just looks like an upside down fish. Like, I don't really get it. Thank you for watching and chatting with me post race. I think it's a couple weeks until the next race. I think it's the 21st of September in Azerbaijan. Thank you for chatting with me about this race. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments about the whole McLaren swapping drivers call, because I think that would be fun to talk about. I guess that's all, and I will see you in the next video.